Hi friends, welcome back to 5 Minute Modern. My name is Cindy, and today we're taking a look at the work of abstract expressionist Sam Francis. Though abstract expressionism is largely thought of as an American art movement, Francis became sort of an international standard bearer for the style, finding both popularity and influence abroad. Francis was born in 1923, and unlike most artists, he actually didn't start painting until young adulthood. Rather, like many young men of his generation, he joined the Air Force, hoping to see action in World War II. However, in 1944, Francis suffered a horrific case of spinal tuberculosis, which would leave him hospitalized for several years. In Francis's own telling, his spinal tuberculosis diagnosis only came after a dramatic plane crash during flight training. However, as Francis's biographer notes, this is likely untrue, a product of Francis's quixotic imagination and massive ego. Regardless, it was during Francis's prolonged hospital stay that he first picked up painting. San Francisco artist David Park volunteered as an art teacher at the Veterans Hospital where Francis was treated, and Park recognized and encouraged Francis's talent. The otherwise bedridden Francis would be suspended above his hospital bed by the staff, painting a canvas below him. Painting opened up a new world for Francis, freeing his mind at a time when his body was immobilized. By the late 1940s, Francis had recovered sufficiently to resume normal life, studying at Berkeley and eventually making his way to Paris. It was in Paris that Francis's reputation as an artist began to rise rapidly, earning him major commissions, including for the Kunsthalle Basel in Switzerland. It was also in Paris that Francis began the bon vivant lifestyle of eating, drinking, and womanizing that he would continue throughout his life. After a few years in Paris, Francis began traveling internationally, especially making trips to Tokyo. Francis had an affinity for Asian cultures dating to his time in the hospital, when, under the influence of morphine, he received a series of hallucinatory visions of an elderly Chinese couple. Inspired by these visions, Francis began studying calligraphy and Zen Buddhism, interests that were only heightened as he began making trips to Japan. Francis was especially taken with the idea of ma, a concept particular to Japan, meaning something like the intentional space between things, the void as a presence rather than as an absence. Exploring ma would be a defining feature of Francis's paintings, especially a series in which he painted only a frame, leaving the center vacant. Though he lived in Santa Monica, California from the 1960s onward, his work would always be more influenced by Japan. It was perhaps this aspect of Francis's work that drew the attention of Sazo Idemitsu, a wealthy Japanese businessman who became one of Francis's most important collectors. Idemitsu commissioned Francis to paint large murals for the art museum he founded in Tokyo, and Francis even married Idemitsu's daughter Meiko in 1966. The marriage was Francis's fourth, and wouldn't be his last. As Meiko began trying to establish herself as a video artist, Francis dismissed his wife's ambitions and continued the womanizing that had lasted throughout his adult life. The couple eventually divorced in 1982. In the 1970s and 80s, Francis took on a number of new projects. He founded the Lapis Press, an independent publisher for fine art books and editions, and was instrumental in founding the Museum of Contemporary Art in downtown Los Angeles. And like many artists during the boom years of the 1980s, Francis saw his works rapidly increase in value. In 1985, though he'd been actively dating another woman, Francis shocked his friends and family by marrying yet again, for the fifth and final time, to a woman named Margaret Smith. While Francis's previous wives often discouraged his impulses towards grandiosity, Smith encouraged him to spend lavishly, and the couple bought multiple properties, including a ranch with 11 Arabian horses for Smith. Smith also encouraged Francis's impulse to seek out alternative treatments when he was diagnosed with prostate cancer in the 1990s. As Francis's condition worsened without proper medical treatment and left him too weak to use his right hand, he nonetheless managed to paint a final series of 150 works, using only his left hand. He died just 2 months after his last painting in 1994. As Francis's biographer notes, there's a deep contradiction between the artist and his work. It feels almost impossible to reconcile the philandering hedonist with his Zen-infused paintings of negative space. Or perhaps these paintings are the perfect visual representations of a life in which tumultuous personal relationships occasionally gave way to purely transcendent art. Thanks so much for joining me on this one. Please let me know in the comments down below what you think of Francis's work. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you learned something new. See you next time. Bye.